This is the third video on chapter 9 and it should be the last one. So I started in the middle of 9.5 at the end of the previous video, but I should have started here at this point. So 9.5, the first section gives you an overview of the South African income security system. So the first important thing is there are three major stages, life stages that are covered, namely childhood, working age and old age. So you should have an idea what happens to each one of these. Then you should also, obviously, and we've had this in all the videos so far, the difference between social insurance programs and social assistance programs. So in South Africa, the social insurance programs consist of three types: the unemployment insurance fund, the compensation funds, and the road accident fund. So you can just read about that, and it's funded from payroll taxes. Well, the social assistance programs consist of 7 different transfer programs. Now, you don't have to name all of them, but you should have an idea what it's all about. But if you think of the three major life stages, you will quickly remember all of them. And they are means tested, so it's not for everyone. It's not a universal grant. It's means tested. Only people under a certain income per month will get these grants. What is important is that there's a table summarizing everything. So the social insurance, the social assistance, and at this stage the occupational insurance, which is not so important. So with social insurance you have 3, social assistance you have 7. Where does the money come from? So if insurance is paid by the workers, or in the case of the road accident fund, by road users. That's why you pay motor licenses and you have a fuel levy. Then social assistance, that just comes from general taxes. So the rich pay taxes and some of the money is transferred to the poor. So I think this table is quite important. So stare at the table and make sense out of it. This is the slide I stopped with previously. Now in table 9.1, what I want you to do is just stare at the table and look for trends. This are the number of social grants, not values. This is not in rand terms, but it's the number of grants. So look how grants in the past 30 years have increased. In just after independence, only 2.5 million grants were given, and 5 years ago 17.5 million different grants were given. So that's a strong trend, isn't it? So when Mr. Mandela was president, we didn't have the child support grant. It had another name, so it wasn't really 0. But then it grew to 3 million, and now it's at 12 point something million. So look at the trends of the different graphs, and you have to be able to say whether South Africa is on the right track or not. Now, I think this is quite important just to get a feel for what is going on. So 70% of all the grants go to children. Now, there's a difference between the number of grants and the amount of money spent. So firstly, the number of grants, 70% go to children, close to 20% to old people, 6% to disability persons. So that adds up to 96%, and the rest is just the other small grants like the war veteran grant and things like that. So if we would draw a circle diagram of the number of grants, blue is the child, then the children get the majority of all the number of grants, then old age, orange, and the disability, the grey part. But if we look at the money, so they also give you the amounts. I've kept the colors the same. So children get 56 billion, old people get 64 billion, and the disability persons get 21 billion. So if we draw a graph of the amounts of money going to the different groups, then we will see that the old age pensioners get the most of the money, and then the children, and then the disabled. So if you go to figure 9.5 in the textbook, I think that's a very interesting graph. Government spending on social grants. So between 2002 and 2005, the amount spent on grants in absolute terms as well as a proportion of GDP increased significantly, and then it stayed more or less at the same. There's a slight increase in the percentage of GDP, and of late an increase in the size of the grants. But why did it only start? So that's an interesting question. This was during President Zuma's time, and I think this is definitely one of the good things out of his term of presidency, is that the grants actually picked up significantly, and so to such an extent that we are in comparison with the best in the world in this. So we are actually giving more grants than most other countries. Table 9.2 is an interesting one for me, which makes a lot of sense. Where does different people's income come from? The very poor, 100% of their income comes from grants, 40% from labor. Then if you look at the rich, then 85% from labor, almost nothing from grants, obviously, and then they also have some interest on capital investments or dividends paid by shares or so on. So the richer you are, the more your capital income is, the less your social grant income is, and the higher your labor income. So this is a picture that makes a lot of sense, but which you should stare at as well. So in conclusion, several studies, this is a very important and true conclusion, that several studies have confirmed that the grants in South Africa markedly reduce poverty and income inequality. So this is really true, and in our case, this has made a big difference. And that's the end of chapter 9.